Hey, if you're setting goals the way most people do, you are probably going to wind up disappointed. Wait, what? Isn't setting goals good? Yes, it's great, as long as they're the right goals for you. And most people aren't actually setting goals by tapping into who they are first. They're setting goals based on societal expectations or parents' expectations, and we're going to talk about turning that around and how you can actually set goals that you are motivated to achieve so you can succeed. And we're going to talk about what success actually looks like and what it really means. So stay tuned. That's what we're talking about today. You don't want to miss it. Hi, I'm Jen Kunkel. I'm the creator of the Wildworth Method to empower you to stop feeling insignificant and instead unleash your wild, savvy self. What the heck does that mean? Well, your wild, savvy self is the self that knows who you are, what you stand for, and you are building the confidence day after day after day, more and more confidence to step into who you really are much more fully and to boldly step into the juicy life you crave. Okay, so for today's topic, we are talking about setting goals in a way that actually is aligned with your heart. When I was in my 20s, coming into adulthood, I had this idea of what success was supposed to look like, success, right? That it was kind of the typical idea of what most people think of as success. I thought, you go through and check off all the boxes, right? You get a good education, maybe a college degree, you get a good job, you get married, you buy a house, you have 2.3 kids, you take a week-long vacation every year, maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky, and that's what I thought success was supposed to look like. So that's what I was working towards when I was coming into adulthood. And actually, I never thought I would go to college, but somehow I just kind of ended up doing it. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was passionate about. I was always envious of those kids who knew exactly what they wanted to do and they had this plan mapped out for their whole life. And I was like, how do you know this already? Like, I don't get it. I had no clue. So um, I was taking college classes because the job I had at the time was paying for them. So I was like, of course I'm going to take advantage of that. Why wouldn't I? And I'd be silly not to. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to major in. At one point I wanted psychology. Um, but I took a chemistry class. It was actually a high school level chemistry class that I needed to take as a prerequisite for something else, I think. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Because I thought in high school, I did good, but I was kind of lazy, so I slacked off and just did the minimal required. And I didn't really think I was going to go to college, so I didn't worry about taking certain classes or whatever. So anyway, so I took this high school level chemistry class, and I really, really liked it, and which was weird because in high school, I remember a friend saying that it was in like AP chemistry. I was like, why would you do that to yourself? I don't get it. Anyway, that just gives you kind of a idea of where I was coming from. But I took this chemistry class, and I was like, wow, this is actually really, really interesting. I love this. It's fascinating. I love how all this works. Um, you know, I really enjoyed it, and I was kind of hooked, and I was like, wow, I think I want to do something that involves chemistry. So I did some research on jobs that you could get as a chemistry major, and I discovered that back then there was no internet. I had to go to the actual library and do the research for that. So I found some books that talked about jobs and their starting salaries and the ranges and all that stuff. And I have no idea what it was now, but I found it somehow. um, and yeah, I discovered that chemists didn't make all that much money to start with, but chemical engineers actually did. And even though I had no idea what that was, I was like, okay, I need to look into this further. So fast forward, it was a much bigger starting salary for a chemical engineer, and I really didn't know what that entailed exactly. But I ended up getting a degree in that, and I did realize that it you could go into medicine, be a doctor, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, that sort of thing, biotechnology. So I liked the biology stuff as well, so I decided to concentrate in that. So ended up getting a degree in chemical engineering with a concentration in biomedical technology, which sounds really fancy. I actually ended up not getting a job in biotechnology. I ended up working for a semiconductor company making computer chips because where I lived at the time, I was married, and by the time I finished school, he did not want to move away because he had built up his business locally, and he didn't want to move away. So the options were work for the semiconductor company or work for the government, and I just didn't want to work for the government. So I went to work for the semiconductor manufacturer, and I actually knew in my junior year that I wasn't really stoked about the chemical engineering after all. It wasn't really as exciting as I expected it to be. It was actually really, really hard, and I had to work very hard to get the degree, and that was unusual for me because school was usually very easy for me. Okay, so the job was actually a really great job with a great company. I mean, I had like 3 weeks vacation right off the bat and a lot of great benefits. And it was not, I enjoyed the job, or I enjoyed parts of the job. I just didn't feel passionate about it, and I wasn't excited to go to work every day. I wasn't excited to work on the projects that I was working on. It was kind of like, okay, it was comfortable. It was okay. The marriage also not all it was cracked up to be. I wasn't happy. I was living hundreds of miles away from my family, and I felt really lonely in my marriage, more lonely when he was around than when he wasn't, actually, and not excited about the job. So I decided to turn my whole entire life upside down and start over from scratch. I left the job, I left the husband, and I left where I was living and moved back to Las Vegas near my family, or some of my family. And I would never look back. And if you know who I was back then, you would know that that was practically insane for me to do. I was a very, responsible, and even though I was a little lazy in school and I did the easiest possible, I was still responsible. I did the right things. I followed the rules. I was a good girl. I was the good little girl who did all the right things. I knew there was just something more that I needed to do. I wanted to do something where I was directly helping people, that I was having more impact, something that felt more fulfilling to me. And I just realized that the whole life I had chosen was not on my heart. It just wasn't on my heart. And it wasn't a decision that I took lightly. I actually gave it a lot of thought. I did a lot of soul searching, and that's where I landed. I recognized that success was nothing like what I thought it was. And I mean, I probably didn't really realize that completely at the time. I just realized that I had taken a wrong turn somewhere, and I wound up on the wrong path, and I needed to fix it. And I did. I feel like I did the right thing, and I have experienced things in my life that I would not have gotten to do if I hadn't realized that I was on the wrong path, and not only realized it, but decided to take a bold leap and fix it and change my path, because it's never too late. You can always change your direction. I had compromised myself for what I felt was the right thing to do. And if I would have stayed on that path, I think I would have continued to be unhappy, and I would not have grown as a person the way that I did. You never have to compromise yourself for other people's expectations, because what they think your life is supposed to look like, really, it's not, they don't get to decide that. You get to decide that. You get to decide what your life looks like for you, and you can change it anytime you want to. So I don't necessarily recommend turning your entire life upside down, and at the same time, if that's what your heart tells you to do, then that's what your heart tells you to do. most people do set goals based on outside expectations, whether it's societal conditioning or your parents or your friends or other family, a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, siblings, whoever. Or maybe something that someone said to you before, even if it's a virtual stranger. Hey, you seem like you would be good at blah, blah, blah. So you think, oh, that person thought that I should do this, so maybe I should do that. Um, the only person who really knows what's on your heart is you, and you might not know that, and it changes over time too. So it's great to have skills to be able to tap into who you are in any given moment and to recognize like what's going on with you. Like, how are you feeling about the choices that you've made? You're not stuck in a decision that you make. You can always renegotiate with yourself in your life. You know, obviously it's going to be easier if you can tap into what's really on your heart, whatever God puts on your heart to do initially, and then you don't have to make all these changes. But sometimes it's about the journey and the growth that taking that windy path leads you to. It's okay if your path is meandering, because most people's are. Most people aren't like those kids that I was envious of when they were younger that just always seemed to know what they wanted to do. And you know, most kids weren't like that. And who knows if they really were happy with the choices, or if they ended up in those careers that they thought they wanted. Maybe that was something their parents were putting on them. Who knows? So I know that we all have choices, okay? And we can let go of the societal conditioning that's telling us what success is supposed to look like. Because your success and what makes you happy is what's in your heart. There's no perfect like finish line to life and this is what it's supposed to look like, or else you didn't make it. It's constant journey, and it's going to be variable, and it's going to change all the time. So go easy on yourself if your life doesn't look like what you think it's supposed to look like based on other people's worldview. Look at your own worldview and decide what works for you. I have a few specific tips for you on actually how to go about doing that. The first thing is to recognize that there is no perfect finish line. Your successful life doesn't have to look like what other people think it has to look like. You got to let go of other people's expectations of you and what they think is best or good or right or whatever. And just focus on what you know for yourself. You know, that's kind of the next step actually. But the first thing is just let go of everyone else's expectations. Recognize there is no perfect finish line. Your finish line looks different than my finish line, and it looks different than other people's finish line. And maybe your finish line looks different at different times, and it's really about the journey on the path. So let go of those expectations, the pressure that you're putting on yourself, the pressure that other people feel like they're putting on you, and the pressure of what society thinks things are supposed to look like. A little over a year ago, my guy and I decided to, the life circumstances happened, like he was working out of town for several months, maybe it could have been a year. So we decided, I'll back up a little bit, I had gotten obsessed with tiny homes I had gotten obsessed with tiny homes and the idea of living in a tiny house or a travel trailer or something like that. So we actually decided about a year and a half ago or so, maybe not quite that long, a little over a year ago, to get a travel trailer, and we both went to where he was working out of town for several months, and then that job was over and he came back to work in Vegas. So now we're living in the travel trailer on the kind of on the edge of Vegas, like near the desert, and it's so awesome. I love it. I've never been happier with where I live, I think. I mean, I loved having my house, but there was so much work to it. And I just feel like this lets us focus on the more important things that we know are more important now, that we feel are important to us now. So we both did the house thing before, and it was just a lot of work and a lot of, you got to fill it with furniture. You got to take care of all this stuff all the time. And it's just, it's almost like taking care of your house becomes another job, whereas now we have more freedom and we just absolutely love it. And I know some people think it's weird, and I don't care. We have to just not care. But because that's where our hearts are right now. So even if other people think it's weird, whatever you want to do, or different, or crazy, or whatever, let go of their expectations. It doesn't matter. Those people are not living your life. You are. So whose expectations matter are just your own and what's on your heart. And one way that you can let go of other people's expectations and really boldly be you is to boost your self-worth. As you increase your self-worth, you increase your confidence, and you just don't care what other people think. You get that it doesn't matter because they're not living your life. Like, why would you let someone who is not living your life make those decisions for you? You are the one who has to live with the consequences of your decisions. So you need to make those choices 100% from your own heart and not from what other people want, because they're not the ones living in those choices. You are. So boost your self-worth, and you boost your self-confidence, and you can be just you, okay? Fully you. And that's why I have the Wild Worth method, because it helps you boost your self-confidence, but it also helps you build a life around that self-confidence and discovering who you are. And then that's the next tip. Next tip is you have to tap in to who you really are at your core, who you want to be, who you want to become. I know that when I was younger, people would be like, oh, just be yourself, because I was so awkward and shy. I was really awkward, like embarrassingly awkward and shy, and just sometimes I just wanted to be invisible and disappear. People would say, be yourself, and I was just like, I don't even know what that means. Like, of course I'm me, but I don't really know, like, what that means. I didn't know what I stood for. I didn't know what I was about. I didn't know what, who I wanted to be. So one thing that I do now, I have a better idea, and I believe that that's constantly evolving. So you constantly have to check in with yourself. Like, okay, who am I being right now? And sometimes you find that being around certain people, I mean, it's a little bit of a tangent, but you find that life situations can sort of start to bring out pieces of you that maybe you don't really want. You want to let those pieces go. That's not part of who you really want to become. And that's all part of growth. So there's no perfect, there's really no end game. It's constantly evolving throughout your whole life. You're not going to just reach some certain level and everything stays the same. One thing I've discovered is that life changes constantly. And some people don't do well with change. I've always kind of liked change, maybe not always, but I have learned to like change and embrace it and be happy with it. So tap into who you are. Just get quiet. I love to meditate because it helps me tap into who I am, on a deeper soul level. So you can just get really quiet, let all of the thoughts of the world and of your day just go. Let them go out of your head and just get super quiet, and tap into what's inside. Try different meditation techniques and see what works for you. You can, even if you just do something like gardening or something that is physical, even if you're just cleaning the house or something like that, you can kind of let everything go and just get real meditative and tap into your own mind. So there's a lot of other techniques that I use in my programs, and we can do those together if you continue to join me. So for now, something simple that you can do is to get quiet, get meditative. You can say a little prayer, ask God to guide you, and then listen. Listen to what comes to you. Really pay attention. After you've listened to this guidance, you can set goals accordingly. I can support you with that as well. In fact, I have a opportunity that I've created. It's completely free. I'm doing a 5-day Extraordinary Life Blueprint Challenge that's coming up real soon. If you're interested in participating in that, go to wildsavvy.com/ELBP5, just the number 5 day. ELBP 5 day. So it's wildsavvy.com/ELBP 5 day. Stands for Extraordinary Life Blueprint. So it's the 5-day Extraordinary Life Blueprint Challenge, and I'll have the link included in the description also. So join me there if you're interested. What will happen is we will go through the 5 days, and I will guide you in just really short videos and exercises that you can do in just, a few minutes. I want to keep it to a total of under 30 minutes a day for you with the video and your homework. So that's the plan. And you can join me to do that. And by the end of that, you will have sketched out a blueprint for your own extraordinary life with it's a pretty comprehensive system. So I'm going to take pieces of my full Extraordinary Life Blueprint plan, and I'm going to bring them to you for free in this 5-day challenge, little pieces, like really high impact pieces that will help you put together a plan for your own extraordinary life and get you started on track with creating your goals that are heart aligned with who you actually are. So please join me for that. I'm super excited. This is actually a program that I did maybe 10, 15 years ago. I created this, and I am dusting it off and bringing it off the shelf since the new year is right around the corner, and I want to support you with this free 5-day challenge. So please join me, and thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this, obviously, like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thanks so much. Much love.